here again. My name is Luc de Kuster, founder of the Kuster Academy. And in this new video, we will talk about net present value. We're going to look at what is net present value and how do we use it and what are some characteristics about it. But before we continue, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. First of all, when I start with net present value, I want to talk about the future value and the present value, or basically the time value of money. Time value of money is important. Just remember, when you put money on a bank account, every year you get some interest. That interest grows, and we see that in the future value of that initial investment grows. We use the principles of compounded interest to calculate its value. We also see that when this amount is growing, and recently I've seen some videos on Facebook about people who found a saving book, the saving account from somebody, some relative, 100 years or older, and when they looked at the interest, the original amount, which was relatively low, like $100 or a few $100s, perhaps $1,000, over the years turned into millions. And that's what we call time value of money. When we look at an investment today, we put it on the bank, we get like 5% every year. After 1 year, we have, for example, $105. After this year, what we do, we keep the money there and we get interest on the initial amount, but also on the interest. And that accumulates, and that's the time value of money, the principle of compounded interest. We also have the same thing when we look at money we have in the future. We have $100 today or €100. In the future, it will be, for example, $150. But that $150 in the future only has a present value of the original $100 amount. And when we're doing investment and we have incoming cash flows, over the years we see that those future cash flows have to be discounted. And that's where we're going to use in the net present value. We're using that principle when we define the net present value. And what is the net present value? Let's start with the formula. So the net present value is equal to the sum of the cash flows, year 1 up to year n. CF cash flow I is the cash flow for a specific year, and we discount it with a discounting factor 1 plus the percentage to the power I. These are the discounted cash flows. So basically what we do with those cash flows, we calculate their present value and we add the present value of all of these cash flows, which is basically the money the project generated over a certain number of years. What we do now is to subtract the investment minus investment. What we have here, what we're going to do now, is to compare the value of all those future cash flows in present value with the initial investment. And what is very important, this value has to be positive. So when we have a positive value, larger than 0, we have a profit. When we have equal to 0, we have a break even. And when it's negative, of course, we have a loss. So we have a loss. And what we need to have to evaluate our project, we have to consider that we have a profit, or in the worst case, a break even. Now let's do this on an exercise, a simple exercise, and we are going to do a simple calculation. I have an initial investment, and we have one cash flow in year 1, and that's all. It's a very simple calculation, but it will help us to do some principles or to apply some principles of net present value. Let's now have a look at this exercise. We have a discount rate of 5%. We have an investment, an initial investment of 50,000 euro or 50k, and we have a cash flow only in year one cash flow with a value of 53,455 euro. I've chosen this number to have a few things that I can show you about net present value. So what do? First, we calculate the net present value. And the net present value in this case, NPV, is, we only have one cash flow, so that's the 455. And I divide this with a discount factor or with a percentage, 0.05 till the power 1 minus 50,000 euro. And when I calculate this, I find a net present value of 910 euro. This is good. We have a positive net present value, which means that our project has a profit. So that's very interesting. Now, when we redo the calculations, for example, with different discount factors, we will see that when the discount factor increases, the net present value will decrease. And that's quite logical, because what is that discount rate? Imagine you are lending money from the bank and you have a certain interest rate to pay. Now, that means that the discount rate would be the interest rate that you pay. And when you calculate this, the higher the discount rate or the interest you have to pay becomes, the lower this parameter becomes, and your net present value will decrease. Now, in practice, what will be this discount factor? For example, we could have the cost of money, the weighted average cost of money, or the required rate of return. These are two important factors, and these in fact determine how much interest you pay to use financial means, money, to do your projects. And we're going to look at a simple table. So let's take this away and have a look at the table that I will project here. And we see here that I'm calculating the net present value for interest rates from 0 to 9%. 0 is very simple. We don't have any time value, so the net present value is the cash flow minus the initial investment, which is 3,455. But we also see when the interest rate increases, the net present value decreases. And we come to a point when we have 6 and 7%, and we see that this turns from a positive net present value to a negative net present value, which also means that somewhere in between 6 and 7%, there is an interest rate where the net present value will be equal to 0. And that's a very important point to consider, because let's look at the next table. We're going now to percentages from 6.5 till 7.4%. And what do we see? Well, we see that now we find that the 0 NPV is between 6.9 and 7%. And we continue, we put the next decimal. So we go from 6.87% to 6.96%. And here we find on 6.91, we find that the net present value is exactly equal to 0. This also means that if you are lending money or you have a cost of money of 6.91%, you have to have a better return in order to make money. Because if you are at this percentage, from this percentage on, you will see that you start making a loss. This is also what we call the internal rate of return, or the yield of your investment. The yield of your investment is when you find that the NPV is equal to 0, and it's an interest rate. In our case, this is 6.91%, but we will talk about that in the next videos. That was it for this simple introduction about net present value, finding the interest rate for which the net present value is equal to 0, and we will discuss more things in the follow-up videos. That's it, folks. Thank you very much. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Bye-bye.